Well guys, somewhere along the way I lost the footage of the initial build of the plywood sump. So I got the pictures here of when I started getting all the stuff pulled together for getting the lines put in, and I decided I wanted to put a viewing window here in the front. I ended up using a can of Barkeeper's Friend to get my angles going around the edges because I wanted to have a radius in there, make it kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. So I ended up using that for the radius. Then I found a hole saw that would actually kind of closely match that radius, and I was able to do pilot holes and use that with my drill all the holes in the corners all the way around, and then I was able to finish that up then with the jigsaw and a circular saw to get the straight edges cut all the way down through. As you see on this one, we got the opening on the one side cut, and I left about, I'd say 4 inches or so in the middle, and then cut the second window out. And all of this was so that you could see the fluidized media inside and monitor the filter media that was in there, so you could see when it was getting gunked up. So I got all that cut out, finished up, put together there. I ended up with doing some sanding and stuff on the inside too to get that straightened up, get all the burrs and edges off of it, but pretty happy with it. We're going to get through this film slideshow here, and then we're going to go over to where I actually had some video footage of further work involved. Start a series with some of the information that we had going on before with the overhead sump I have behind me over here. I'm going to give you guys an update on where we were with this. I wanted to do a timeline or time-lapse thing for this, but working with this pond shield, pond armor stuff is just really finicky, and time frame wise it's really difficult to get accomplished. So I can't waste the product, so I want to try and make sure I get as much of it on there as I can without it solidifying, and it does do that quickly. So I didn't do a time lapse on it, but I want to show you guys updates as we go along. So this is the blue coating. Go inside here, did the full length, the whole thing around the cutouts, and this is one thick coat. Now I will say, if you do the denatured alcohol in the mixture, you don't need a lot of it, just a little bit, and then you can get a little more setup time and flowability out of it, which that has been nice. And I did that with my first 500-gallon plywood tank as well. So this is progress, and then we will start with the baffles and the front panes of acrylic, and then you guys will see this as it progresses. I just want to try and keep you up to date and follow along, because the last one I did, all I had was pictures, and then I was trying to explain the pictures as I was going along without any video. That's really difficult to do, and to keep you guys engaged and seeing the steps of the process as we go along. So the original pictures and things I had from making this was the glued and screwed panels all the way through, bottom as well, you know, it's done the same way all the way around. And then I will eventually paint all of this exposed wood black, so it protects the wood and also makes it a little bit less noticeable in the fish room. Obviously we'll be able to see everything that's going on in the front. I'll have a fluidized media section somewhere across the middle here, because I enjoy watching that almost as much as I enjoy watching the fish tanks. And then we will have like a refugium section, you know, then, or filter socks. This will be a freshwater aquarium sump overhead, and then we'll have probably some sponge filter media here, then the fluidized section in the middle, and then that will end up at the end section here where we will have a bunch of the ceramic blocks, which I've already ordered. I've had them for a while. This plan was planned this way for quite a bit of time, but I have everything for that. So once we get this all cured up and put the baffles in and the acrylic in, then our end point will spill back over into the tank after going through and sitting in the ceramic media section, the biomedia section. So follow along. We're going to be watching more parts of this as it goes, and I'll stitch in some of the pictures from the original build part of all this. But I'll tell you what, if you use the good wood and a good cut, you get everything set up, it makes it so much easier to seal everything up. And always use wood glue, like the waterproof wood glue, and good, like outdoor rated screws too, just to make sure you have everything bound together and you don't have any big gaps or anything to have to deal with. And also you save a lot on your pond shield too, or pond armor, whichever one you're using, your sealant, because on a smooth surface you only have to use like one good coat, instead of on like a rougher surface, where if you get the cheaper wood, the rougher surface ends up being that you have to do multiple coats to try and get in all the nooks and crannies and all the different things. So you spend a little bit of money up front, get the good quality stuff, save you a lot of heartache and a lot of problems later. And like, let's face it, that stuff is not cheap by any means. Now I did get the blue, and the blue always seems to be cheaper because it's not necessarily ideal. I prefer the black, but the black's always more expensive. And I have some leftover black, so I might coat this over black, but I think I'm probably just going to leave it blue, because it's just going to be a sump. If this was going to be in a tank that was going to have a bunch of other things going on, I may have changed the color, but we shall see. Like I said, I just want to give you guys an update. Anyway, here we are. Update on the acrylic cut pieces I have going on in the overhead sump. So these are just sitting in here currently. I still have to do all the siliconing and everything else, but the idea is, you know, the water flows in this side, and then this will actually be up further, so it'll leave a gap underneath, so the water will flow under the first baffle, and then the second baffle I'm going to have down all the way at the bottom, and so it's going to flow over the second baffle. The first section is going to have like filter floss, maybe some coarse filter media in the front to catch all like the big debris and stuff, and then it's going to go under this baffle and then flow up and over this one down into another section of sponge filtration, mechanical filtration. And then this really isn't like necessarily the spot for this, but I have to figure out what kind of size filter media I want to have in here, and then this will then be located accordingly as to where it's going to go. But I did do little cutouts in here too, because this will end up being raised up as well, up off the ground, or up off the bottom, so the water can flow through the media and then down and underneath. But if it does clog up, I need the water to go somewhere, so I cut the notches out of the top so it can flow over top. Then once it flows under this one, it'll reach this chamber, which is this big main part of the chamber here, between that baffle and this one, will be all the fluidized media, all the K1 fluidized media flowing, swirling around. All that's going to be happening in here, fluidized media area. Then I cut this like a kid with a crayon. I cut this acrylic sheet out here with slots in it. So if anybody's ever worked with K1 media it is small and it floats and it wants to just go wherever, basically wherever. So the idea here is to raise this up, still leave a space over top just so that, you know, if it does end up raising too high, it'll still flow out over. But then that bottom one will end up being up on like a 45 degree, and then this will be up on top of this. So the water flow will go under that one, across the fluidized media, and then under and through this acrylic screen. So the K1 media should float at the top for the most part, or be kind of suspended within the water column. But then if the water flow is actually flowing down, so all that swirling and everything that carries on, it happens all throughout all this, and then the water flows down, it should help to naturally separate the water from the fluidized media. Should. I have had that where the media gets, you know, kind of heavier. Sometimes the flow is a little bit too much and it just goes down there anyway. But that's the idea with that. Again, kind of a hack job of making that happen, but you know, I'm a DIYer for a reason. So then it'll go so under there into this chamber, and then this chamber is going to be full of ceramic media. So I have these ceramic media cube bricks that I got a whole bunch of specifically for this project. And so I'm going to have that sit down in here, stacked up, probably, I don't know, one of these ways, long ways or sideways. And then so that's going to be like a settling chamber. So the water will flow through this, into this station, and then up over and into the back chamber back here. Now from that chamber, I'm thinking about possibly putting a hole in the side of the acrylic and running the pipe out and down so I can have like media bags in the last chamber, or stuff that I need to seed a new tank in the last chamber, so it'll fill water-wise, it'll fill up somewhat, and then flow out through the pipe that would come out of the corner here and back into the tank. That's the generalized flow, and so it'll essentially take place of where all this is here. And so the flow will come back out of the side of the sump here and flow back into the tank on this side, but it'll be pumped up from this side. So I'll move the pump and everything right now is in the middle. I'll just move that all the way over to the one side, and then that'll pump up into the top and then all the way across the other side and back in. Then I have cross flow coming across the tank too. So that's the general idea of what I'm trying to get accomplished here. So this is my little one that I had made for the 125 discus tank, and this is filtration, mechanical filtration, filter floss, and then the sponge down here, and it flows underneath that. It comes back up, some sponges and things in here. The glare is really bad. Anyway, it flows up there over this and then into the fluidized media center. And this is all that K1, you know, flowing around in there. One of the fish just jumped at me. And then it goes under this piece of plastic here, and you see it's all clumped up at the bottom, because that's just like when it gets kind of caught up in the flow and it gets sucked down to the bottom here, and then it comes up this chamber and then it floats at the top like this. So I'm trying to eliminate that from being able to get through, because then it'll flow over top of this section here
and then down into the submerged media here. So the ceramic rings and ceramic media and all that stuff's in here, and then it flows back in the center of that tank, or the pipe, and then back down to the tank. It's a great system and it works phenomenally. It's just some things, this was my first one, so there's some things I definitely want to tweak and make different. There's the discus. Oh, and Alex, the angelfish, who, Alex got himself a little overzealous. He was going for a piece of food at the same time Titus, the arowana, was. And I think he got his tail fin bit off. So he was in quarantine for a little bit in a little hospital tank. And he has since been released. I just don't know that it's a good idea for him at his size and for what happened to go back into the monster fish tank. So that's why he's over here. What's up, Alex? OG, he's one of the originals. He's chilling with his friends. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? So that's where we're at with the overhead sump build currently.
Not really sure what happened with this. The audio got all messed up on this video, and I just did this one too right before getting on here to do this. So I'm gonna record over it and try to explain what all was going on here. So I just finished the siliconing on the first couple panels here, and I used the spacers underneath that were about an inch tall for both sections. So it gave me the spacing that I needed in there for like where the mechanical filtration was going to go. I kind of opened that space up. Now I can put all my filter pads in there. And then this is where the fluidized media is going to be. So this is the shot of where all that floating K1 is going to sit. Now I wanted to sit here, or I wanted to sit you guys in here to see me actually do some of the silicone work. Here I was debating on the angle as to how far I really wanted that panel to go up, or if I wanted the angle to be a little bit different, or if I wanted to move it back a little bit further. There was quite a bit going on with this aspect of the video here, or this portion. That piece that I made, I mean, it's going to do the job, but it's not something I necessarily wanted to have on display. It did not come together as well as I had hoped. But it'll do the job, and it is DIY. I didn't have to buy it from anybody or anything like that. I didn't make it. So I was just trying to figure out what kind of angles I wanted to have for this panel. This was a little bit more of a crucial space because of where that media was going to be, what kind of spacing I was going to need for it. You know, and then I have to try and get the silicone on all the angles, and this is one of those things that, like, I have to get the silicone across the bottom piece almost completely around the bottom piece, and then add the secondary piece on top and have it all line up. And the silicone will hold up really, really well. It takes a little bit of time to set up. So, and the hope is that it doesn't move around on you in the meantime. So here I did a lot of silicone work by hand with a hand caulk gun, and it was horrible. I hated every minute of it. Hands cramping up all the time. Like, they make things that make this so much easier. And here is a battery operated caulk gun. And you can set the different speeds on it, which is awesome. It plugs right into my DeWalt stuff. I use the DeWalt battery. I'm on that platform, so I set the little dial on the back side there all the way down to, I think, level 1 or 2, and then just pull the trigger and go. I used that on the 500 gallon build, and honestly that's the only way I was able to get that glass done solo. Like, I was by myself, and there's no way I would have been able to crank a hand crank caulk gun around a 3 foot tall by 7 foot long window. You know, and I think it was a like a 4-inch overlap on that too to try and get filled in with the silicone. So one of the best things I've bought so far for all this DIY fish keeping project stuff. So I went to get a paper towel because you know, run your finger over across the caulk to spread it out and get a good adhesion, good grip. Came back. Now I got to get that part in there without moving the bottom piece. Now, the bottom piece was wedged in there pretty good, so I wasn't too worried about that. I think it would hold up pretty good. Don't know that I was going to have any issues with that, but I was still being cautious. So here we go. The electric caulk gun strikes again. And it has a little light on the front too. The whole front end of it lights up. If I would have turned that on, makes it a lot easier for seeing in darker areas. But I did have a temporary light up above all of this that was helping both. It was helping me to see, and it's helping you guys to see, because otherwise it would have been kind of dark in there. But you can see I got the acrylic panels in the front, all the way on the front side by me. A little air bubble on the bottom there, but that's not going to matter because I have several inches of contact and silicone gasket around the hole of both the acrylic panels on the front. So I want to do the front side and the back side of this. I could only do the front side on the bottom slatted piece, but I was able to reach the front and back side for the upper section, which I've done on all of the panels down through. Did front and back. And I think as I was pushing on, I think the panel was moving a little bit on me as I was running that bead up. And again, you could leave it as just a rounded bead, but you don't get quite the disbursement. You know, you run the finger across it and kind of really just disperse that bead out. There's a lot less to grab a hold of. It's a lot more seamed nicely. And the area that it grabs too is a larger area as well. If I knew how to do the editing on this to speed this process up, I would show you how fast I could go. But that's not the case here. Slow and steady. And I still have that back piece to put in, which would be the next section from where the ceramic blocks are going to sit. So I have that at the end. And then I do talk about the bulkhead that would end up going in. And thank goodness I'm doing this voiceover, because when I'm on the camera, I cannot think of that word, bulkhead, to save my life. And I fumble over every other word I could possibly think of that means what that means, but it's so I did decide that I'm going to end up doing that through the acrylic in the last chamber, that I will put one, possibly two bulkheads going out from your view here. It'll be going out the right side in the last chamber to spill back over into the tank. I was going to spill it out the bottom like I did in the previous one, little 5-gallon jobby that I did up on top of the 125 discus tank, but I decided against that because I don't want to go through the pond shield. So I don't want to jeopardize that. So here I am. I'm all proud of myself because I got the silicone across the front. Nothing moved on me. That's where the bulkhead's going to go. Ideally. Like I said, might do two, just so that I can handle a larger amount of water flow. But it's going to depend on what I have to be able to work with on that. But I can adjust that up or down too, so that it ends up being more or less water in that last settling chamber. So again, I'm going to be talking here, but it, you know, the audio got, I don't know what the heck happened to the audio, but it just got ungodly loud. So we'll cut it off here. And I think the next thing I need to do is water testing and then setting it on its spot. And then I'll show you guys the finished product.